This is Piper Crocatum, and I'm going to show you how I take care of this houseplant. One of the interesting things about the Piper Crocatum is that it's a cousin to the Piper nigrum. Whether you know it or not, you are very familiar with Piper nigrum because that's where we get black pepper from. Yes, the food spice. I'm a huge fan of pepper, by the way. But let's get into the care instructions for this really easy to grow houseplant. As always, we're going to start off with light. Light is the most important aspect of houseplant care, and I want you to give this plant brighter light. Now, they're not succulents, they're not ficus, they're not cacti. They don't need that really harsh like south-facing window or west-facing window, but they do appreciate bright light. What I want you to do, wherever you put the plant, I want you to get down on its perspective and I want you to look out the window. Can you turn your head to the left and to the right and see sky? Not sun. I'm not saying can you see the sun, I'm saying can you see the sky from where it's seeing. The more sky you can see with this plant, the better. Now we do have quite a range of motion in here. These actually can survive a medium light scenario. So if you have a really harsh like south or a west facing window, something that's really hot, like if you're standing next to the window and you can feel like the heat permeating off it, maybe hitting your arm, scoot the plant back a little bit. You want to avoid the leaf burning, but you still want to maintain a nice wide view of that sky. Light is the most important aspect of houseplant care and definitely really important with these. Now let's talk about watering. We like to water these plants when the topsoil dries out all the way down to about 25% in between really thorough soakings. Now I say 25% because in the winter months when our days are shorter, there's not as much light. Light is what processes the water. So when we have less light, there's slower water processing. So if you keep up the same watering regimen in the winter months as you established in the spring and the summer months when our days were really long, you increase your chances of root rot with this plant. They're very susceptible to that. So I want you to err on the side of caution and let them dry out a little bit longer during the winter months. Now, if you have an appropriate grow light and you want to keep up with the watering every time the topsoil dries out, that's perfectly fine. But if you're just using natural light, you're going to get shorter days, so I would let them dry out a little bit longer in between watering. For fertilizer, they're not super heavy feeders, but we still want to fertilize with a general purpose, liquid soluble or granule fertilizer, or my favorite, an organic fertilizer throughout the growing season, which again is the spring and the summer months. You'll notice this plant is winding and twining around this trellis that we have right here. They are prolific climbers. They are very vigorous climbers, although they're very slow climbers, so they're pretty slow to grow. I wouldn't expect this plant to explode with growth the first year that you have it. That doesn't mean you have to let it climb. You can totally just let it trail. Either is perfectly fine, but climbing is naturally how it grows. We like to repot these plants every 1 to 2 years or when the roots start coming out of these bottom drainage holes here. It's always important that you have drainage holes whenever you're repotting your houseplants. For soil, I like to use 3 parts houseplant soil to 1 part cactus soil. And again, the cactus soil is just to increase that drainage because although they do like to retain quite a bit of moisture, they are susceptible to root rot. So you want that cactus soil in there to just increase that drainage a little bit, increase that airflow around the roots a little bit. That's going to give you more room for error with the Piper Crocatum. Something I always want to point out when we're talking about caring for this plant is actually found on the back sides of the leaf. Now because it's a pepper plant, they're going to produce these crystal-like substances on the backs of the leaves, and at first glance it might look like spider mites. But in fact, it's just naturally occurring. It's not going to hurt the plant at all. We just ignore it. You might also find them along the stem as well. But that's going to do it for the care instructions for the Piper Crocatum. Let me know in the comments below if you have grown this plant before. Have you tried the Piper nigrum? Yes, you can grow your own black pepper. And let me know if you're interested in growing this one. And if you have any questions, just leave them in the comments below.